All right, let's dive into one of the greatest mysteries in all of ancient literature, the Nephilim. Who were these beings? Seriously, where did they come from? It's a story that kicks off with just a couple of cryptic lines, but has fueled thousands of years of fascination, wild speculation, and some pretty intense debate. Everything, and I mean everything, starts right here. This one little passage from the book of Genesis. It's so brief, so dramatic, and honestly, it leaves you with way more questions than answers. You've got sons of God, daughters of man, and then smack in the middle of it all, the Nephilim. And these two questions, right here, they are the absolute heart of the whole mystery. For literally millennia, people have been trying to piece this puzzle together. So let's do just that. Let's start by looking at what the original texts actually tell us, or maybe more importantly, what they don't tell us. So here's the first thing you have to get your head around. The Bible itself is incredibly quiet about all this. We get that main bit in Genesis chapter 6, and then just one other quick mention in the book of Numbers, where some terrified spies claim they saw Nephilim in Canaan. And that's it. Seriously, no deep dives, no lengthy backstories, just silence. Right, that's the big question, isn't it? If the official text is so light on details, why do we all have this super vivid picture of fallen angels and world-ending giants in our heads? Well, the answer isn't in most Bibles. It comes from another ancient and hugely influential book. Let me introduce you to the Book of Enoch. This is a non-canonical Jewish text, written somewhere between 300 and 100 BC. Now, even though it's not official scripture for most folks today, back in the day, around the time of Jesus, it was incredibly popular. And Enoch doesn't just add a little detail to Genesis 6. Oh no, it blows it up into this epic, cosmic drama. So in Enoch's version of the story, the sons of God get a name. They're called the Watchers. And it wasn't just a few of them. We're talking about a group of 200 angels, led by a chief named Samjaza, who looked down, saw human women, and basically decided to abandon their posts in heaven for earthly desires, a huge violation of a sacred cosmic rule. The book lays it all out step by step. These Watchers, they make this pact on Mount Hermon. They come down, take human wives, and this unnatural union produces these giant, violent children, the Nephilim. But their sin was so much bigger than just lust. They also corrupted humanity by teaching all sorts of forbidden knowledge, which plunged the world into such total chaos that God had to hit the reset button with the Great Flood. And you've got to hear the kind of stuff they were teaching. It's fascinating. It wasn't just one thing. Specific angels taught specific corrupting arts. One taught humanity how to make swords and shields. Another taught cosmetics, makeup and jewelry. And get this, they taught magic and spells, even specific hate-inducing charms designed to break up marriages. They literally handed humanity the instruction manual for war, vanity, and social chaos. And this leads to one of the most powerful ideas to come out of the Book of Enoch. What happens to these giant Nephilim after they die? Well, according to this text, their spirits don't just disappear. They are doomed to roam the earth, tormenting humanity forever. This right here, it's a full-blown origin story for what many traditions would come to call demons. Now, this idea of heavenly beings coming down and sharing forbidden knowledge, it's not totally unique to Enoch. In fact, we find some really interesting parallels when we look at the Quran. Take a look at this verse. It tells the story of two angels, Harut and Marut, who were sent down to Babel. And what did they do there? They taught mankind magic. But pay close attention to the kind of magic they taught, the kind that could cause division between man and wife. Sound familiar? It definitely should. I mean, when you put it all side by side like this, the parallels are pretty wild. You've got the same theme, forbidden knowledge from angels. You have that super specific theme of magic that breaks up marriages. And while the Quran doesn't talk about angel-human hybrids, it does describe a wicked, powerful people called the Ad as Jabarin, a word that's very closely related to the Hebrew word Gibarim, which Genesis uses for the Nephilim. Coincidence? Maybe, but it's fascinating. Okay, but here's a really, really important difference we have to talk about. In Enoch's story, the Watchers are full-on rebels. They sinned, they fell from grace, they were punished. In the Quran, Harut and Marut are not fallen angels. They're acting on God's command. Their teaching of magic is a test for humanity, and they even warn people not to misuse it. The sin, in this case, lies with the humans who make the wrong choice. So we have these amazing, complex stories. But let's circle all the way back to that one single word from Genesis, Nephilim. The name itself is actually at the center of a huge debate, and its meaning could change everything about how we see this story. So the debate basically boils down to this. The word Nephilim looks like it comes from the Hebrew root word nepal, which means to fall. That gives us the translation, the fallen ones, which points to their rebellious character. But some scholars make a strong case that it's actually from a related language, Aramaic, where the word Nephila just means giant. So, which is it? Were they defined by their fallen nature or by their massive size? The language itself leaves it open.
And because of that ambiguity, we've basically ended up with three main camps over the centuries. You have the angelic view, which is the big supernatural story we get from the Book of Enoch. Then you have the Sethite view, which says this is all just a metaphor. The sons of God were the good guys from Adam's son Seth's family line, and the daughters of man were the bad guys from Cain's line. And then there's the elite warrior view, which says there's nothing supernatural here at all. The Nephilim were just famous, powerful human warlords.
Of course, all of this leads to the one question everyone eventually asks, the elephant in the room. If there were actual literal giants walking the earth, where are the bones? And the answer from the scientific and archaeological community is really simple and direct. There is no evidence. Zero. Despite all the wild internet hoaxes and sensational headlines you might have seen, no verifiable fossil of a giant humanoid that matches the Nephilim description has ever been found. So, if there's no physical proof, and the original source is so incredibly brief, why does this story have such an unbreakable hold on us? Why are we still talking about the Nephilim thousands of years later? Well, that gets us to the real power of this story, its legacy. You see, this story's influence just spread and spread through history. First, the Book of Enoch made the detailed version famous. Then we see New Testament writers like Jude and Peter talking about rebellious angels being held in chains for judgment. That's a theme straight out of Enoch. A few hundred years later, early church fathers are using the story to explain where demons come from. And that fascination is still going strong today in the 21st century. So here's the bottom line. It doesn't really matter if you think the Nephilim were real historical beings or just a powerful myth. Their impact is undeniable. This one story has shaped fundamental ideas about evil, the origin of demons, divine judgment, and the danger of crossing sacred lines. It's a foundational story for spiritual warfare, and its themes are all over our modern pop culture, from video games to fantasy novels. So in the end, maybe the real power of the Nephilim story isn't about finding giant skeletons or proving angelic DNA. Maybe it lasts because it speaks to something much deeper. A cautionary tale about what happens when boundaries are broken, when knowledge is misused, and when the world starts to spiral into chaos. It's a story that forces us to think about the fragile line between heaven and earth and the terrifying consequences of crossing it.